Hello everyone. Greater content creators than I have already commented on the fact that we have usage statistics for Tekken 8 characters now, and it's very interesting, although if you are playing the game online at the moment, the numbers aren't exactly surprising. We know what characters are very popular, very liked, the ones that keep showing up in matches and going very aggressive. But do we know why the distribution ends up looking like this, and do we know what the consequences of that are? Well, let's talk a little bit about it. I'm going to show the graph that you have probably already seen, showing what the distribution looks like right now. But before we go into that, I'm going to show you a graphic of my own to explain why it ends up being like this a lot of the time. And I've been analyzing stuff like this in Tekken for a really long time, and I think I have a pretty good handle on it. I think we can all agree that we, broadly speaking, have three different types of Tekken fans who play this franchise. The biggest blob in this Venn diagram that I've made are the tier ladies of the night, as I'm going to call them for YouTube purposes. It should be the largest one because this is a large group and a very strong trend that we see in Tekken, in fighting games in general, but definitely specifically in Tekken. We know that people want to pick to win, and I think a lot of the time this actually happens subconsciously, if we're going to be completely honest. We know for a fact that losing in Tekken can be very painful, and winning and ranking up is very exciting. All these reward chemicals are exploding in your brain, making you feel good. And so if you play a character that lets you feel like that more, you will probably enjoy playing them more. You will end up loving using that character. And so even though you're playing what you love, in a way, you love it in large part, but not always, for the reason that it allows you to win a lot more, right? And it's a very strong trend. I'm not making this up. We have plenty of statistical strong examples. One of them being Leroy coming out and basically being the only played character in Tekken Online and in tournament for quite a while, then being nerfed through the ground and then completely dropping off and barely being used by anybody anymore. Leroy is not super strong in this version of the game either, Tekken 8, and he's currently one of the least used Tekken characters. So we're going to look at that a little bit later. We also have people who are weebs, you know, the people who go on Reddit and they, make a cute little comic of Jun and Kazuya in, tank tops on a couch in some sort of cute domestic dispute where Jun goes, "Hey Kazuya, take out the trash," and he's like, "I don't want to," and he fries the garbage with his eye laser, and she goes like, "Oh, you know those people, Lily and Asuka at the beach, watercolor, by me!" exclamation mark. That's a huge subgroup as well. It's probably the one that I fall into the most. And there are also Mishima boys, and this is like a very specific sort of sweat lordy kind of subculture within Tekken who believe that Mishima characters are difficult to play, which they aren't, and therefore are balanced, which they aren't. And so when you make a Venn diagram out of it, it all becomes very clear, right? You're going to end up with some characters double dipping into some of these groups. Dragonov being the most popular character and the most tier Lady of the Night character probably right now, especially if you don't want to do complex things with your hands, ends up being a very popular character. But you can see what Namco are doing with their marketing when you look at the middle of the diagram, because what happens when you pander to every large group of Tekken player at the same time? Can you create something that is going to be popular and used by pretty much everybody? Well, it turns out that you can, and the character is called Reina, which is a name in Japanese but also means queen in Spanish, so that's also a calculated choice, and I think they've been very successful with this design and what they're trying to do with it. Let's move on and look at the actual numbers and comment on them. I'm going to disappear behind here because otherwise I would be in the way. We can tell that Dragonov this week has actually gone past Reina and become the most played character in the game right now. Reina was more popular than Dragonov a couple of days ago, so these pillars right here are still moving, but they are far ahead, out on top, Reina and Dragonov. I think Dragonov, even though he had some nerfs in the first ever balance patch to this game, is still meteorically overpowered and needs to be looked at in a very serious way. And I don't think anybody is going to disagree with it if people are coping and calling the character, fine and you just need to learn the matchup or whatever, that's probably a person whose opinion you should disregard for the time being. I think that the running 2 for Dragonov has been a sort of limiting design choice for the character for a long time, because the move is so prolific, so good, and does so many different things for you that the space for doing other stuff with the design, for making Dragonov into a character that doesn't just abuse the running 2, becomes very limited. There's limited design space there, because no matter what you add to Dragonov, the answer is probably you should be doing running 2 anyway. And an indirect buff to the character happens in this game when the while running input has its execution barrier removed, which has happened in Tekken 8 in case you didn't know. Tapping forwards 3 times to get a while running move was not something you could do in previous versions of the game. You actually, at close range, had to do it in a very, very specific and difficult way, a true instant while running, to get it to work. The fact that you don't have to do that anymore means that you can do one of the most powerful things in the game very, very easily. So Dragonov's running 2 is a problem, and then you also add, new strong lows, some of the most powerful combos of any character in the game, and he's kind of this sort of a very aggressive, blunt instrument who doesn't have to wait and let other people take turns. He can collect plus frames easily with a running 2, the back 1+2. His heat is powerful and all the rest of it. So I think it is inevitable that he ends up being popular. This popular is kind of interesting though, because he was considered kind of weak and not that popular at the tail end of Tekken 7, but now he's just like so prolific. And it is an example of how Tekken players really love to pick characters that allow them to do a lot of aggressive stuff, win, and feel good about winning, right? And Reina, in my opinion, also falls in the same category in a lot of ways. It is also a character who, even though everything is still a little bit up in the air, we are going to agree as a community that she is way too powerful at some point, and they will have to look at her. But she's also very aggressive. Her animations look amazing. She's new, she's fun, she's explosive. She shows up in the story. And again, she triple dips into the 3 major Tekken demographics, right? So it's inevitable that she ends up being popular. And then at number 3 we have Victor, who is kind of considered a bit of a bugged and very problematic character right now. He carries people really quite far because you can push very hard with him, be very evasive, deal a bunch of damage. He has bugged throws that are super difficult to break properly. And he's also, has a huge cool factor and also is a new character to the game, right? And if you look at the top, I would say 11 characters here, from Dragonov down to Jun, I think we will agree at some point that pretty much all of the characters in this top group are currently overpowered. There might be exceptions to that. I think Kazuya might be in a pretty good spot balance-wise. I think with Azuzena, she has a running move, I think it's running 3-2, that is deeply problematic right now. But if she couldn't abuse that to the extent that she does, the character design might actually be fine. I know that you can sidestep and sidewalk that move. It's just a little bit too hard. The move closes gaps too quickly, deals too much damage, is mid. And then I also have some video examples that I'm going to show at some point of how this move can bug, and even if you sidestep it properly, Azuzena can actually do a 180 in the air and hit you even though you stepped to her back, which is the only way of evading the move and not getting mixed up if you block it. Another problem with it being that it deals chip damage. Azuzena has, strong mixing and all the rest of it. So it's just a bit of a god move at the moment. But if they change it, I think Azuzena might be fine. We'll see what happens, and there's more testing that has to be done. It's really fun to see Yoshimitsu this high, because Yoshimitsu was a not very popular kind of weak trolley character in the past. I think he looks amazing in this game. I think adding more sword moves, making him feel more like a powerful actual fighter who uses a sword, is just really good. Because in the past it was just these weird slaps and spins that he just looked like, a non-martial artist who shouldn't have been in the game, basically. And now it's so much more explosive and fun and dynamic and interesting to look at. And it's cool that the community have responded and are actually playing Yoshimitsu. At this point, more common than Huarong, which is crazy. Huarong being, this character where you basically play with your foot or your face. I mean, maybe some people are disabled and they have to play in that way, in which case it's very impressive. But if you have perfectly good hands, and you can actually win more by just pushing your entire body into your controller, making sure that you press all the buttons all the time, and getting out like an inescapable string of completely like moronic offense. That's a bit of a problem, but that's just Huarong. I think everybody hates Huarong at the moment. Everybody's talking shit. I've heard multiple like Huarong players admit that they kind of think he's toxic right now. So not even Huarong players like Huarong, which is funny to me. It's kind of great. If we look at the lower end of the spectrum here, and we have to disregard Panda because of course it's a clone character, right now Kuma is just a strictly more powerful version of Panda because his in-heat stuff is more powerful than hers. So it's inevitable that this character falls off. It probably would be less popular even if that wasn't the case, because people prefer Kuma to Panda visually. Even though they are clone characters, really you should probably just add their numbers up. But Zafina, the least played character in the game right now, and again, we talk about people who pick to win and people liking to play strong characters. I think that Zafina is not only the least popular character in the game right now, she's also by far the weakest. And I was a pretty decent Zafina player in Tag 2. I understand how she works. I know the frame data quite well. And I can tell you for a fact that this character has been butchered in such a strange way that it doesn't really make sense. If you thought she was too good and she needed to be nerfed, that's kind of fine, and I can understand that opinion. But they've done things that almost seem like malicious, because they've just removed options that weren't even that popular, but they've just taken a lot of options away from her to where she can now be a lot less dynamic, a lot less unpredictable. She can't mix with her 3 from Scarecrow anymore. She doesn't have the up 1+2 Tarantula transition. Her 3/4 string from Mantis is completely gone. It's also true that Zafina has a heat gimmick where her demon hand attacks are supposed to be a lot stronger and not take away your health. Problem being that those attacks aren't really that strong and do that much, because you can just block them over and over. And Zafina deals damage to herself when she uses them outside of heat, meaning that not only does she have low damage, basically no combos, she actually does damage to herself if she's going to try and use moves that are only average. So it's balanced in a very strange way. The only good thing going for her is that she has one of the best heat crashes in the game. So you're supposed to go into heat with her, but if that's all you have, you're not going to win rounds with it. It's not like, some characters where you can go into heat, retain it for an entire round, and try and push your opponent from 0 to death in heat. That's a completely different thing, right? My own main character at the moment, Elisa, is sort of middle of the pack. And I think she's sort of middle of the pack in terms of power as well. This is where I tend to end up with my favorite characters, because the exact same way a lot of people have this psychological complex where they just want to play strong characters, I have a thing where I'm like a contrarian and a hipster, and I will always gravitate subconsciously away from the most popular choices, maybe because I feel that limits my ability to express myself as a player, and I just feel like a little bit of like one person in the crowd sort of a thing. But I think they are predictable numbers. I now want to talk about briefly why I think this is going to be a little bit of a problem for Namco, and obviously long term also for the community. When you have a community that wants to play the strongest characters, and you release a game with balance that is as volatile and strange as Tekken 8 is right now, you're going to end up with a distribution where 7-8% of the entire community playing one character in a game that has 31 characters is actually like a huge concentration of popularity on one character. I mean, statistically, it's like massive, right? And now, if we want to improve the balance in this game, Namco are in the very, very uncomfortable situation of having to go after people's favorite characters. The most popular characters that people are enjoying the most right now are going to have to be nerfed very, very hard for the balance of this game to be better. And so you either don't balance them out and you have people complaining, all the people who aren't playing Reina and Dragonov and Victor, or King talking about how the balance is really, really unfair and you have to sort of pick to win in this game, which is a very bad situation, or you start nerfing the most popular and loved characters in the game right now, and all of these people who are playing the characters feel like, oh, my favorite character, my main got slaughtered, and what am I supposed to do now? And they are going to be upset about the game, and there's going to be massive backlash either way. And this is my point, and one of the reasons I always obsess about balance. Bad balance in a game like Tekken is actually a prophecy of more bad balance. If you start off with bad balance, it becomes increasingly difficult to correct. And I think the ideal environment is one where everybody gets to feel like even though their character isn't the best, their character is capable of keeping up and they can have a lot of success without picking to win, because then everybody can genuinely play what they love. And so it's just maximum fun for everybody, whether you want to play the strongest character or, you know, a low tier character. But when you start off with balance that is this skewed, it creates a bunch of problems down the line. And I get it, you know, if I was playing Dragonov right now and I was in love with, you know, doing these moves, I would be having a lot of fun. And then they just turn the running 2 into a high, which they won't. It's the perfect change for that move and would completely fix like the major balance problem with the entire game right now. They should make his running to a high, but you know, that's a different video. I have a bunch of like suggested changes to like all these characters, but you know, we'll talk about it some other time. I've done a lot of testing and I have like opinions right now, but whatever. They're gonna feel terrible, and some of them might even like not play the game anymore. You know, screw Tekken 8, and they won't want to continue. So yeah, balance is important, and I'm not saying that because I want my, you know, shitty characters to be better, so that I can win more for free. I want everybody to like have as much fun as possible. That's the best for the community. That's the best for Namco. It makes even the offline scene more interesting to keep up with. Right now, I think that Zafina is probably the only character that is in a state where she is so bad that I'm going to say don't pick her. I've played against some amazing players online who are making it happen with her despite that, but I feel like I've sometimes won against them even though they actually played better, because they just run out of options to hurt me with, because Zafina is that bad. And then you have a couple of characters on top. I think some of the strongest right now, Jun, Dragonov, King, these characters where you just feel like, yeah, I mean, it's okay for a character to do more damage than me, for King to have a heat mechanic that is very, very strong, but should it be so strong where I feel like it doesn't matter if I'm twice as good as my opponent, I'm just, you know, bringing a toothpick to a bazooka fight right now, and it's just weird. And then it's, you know, that character, and then that character again, and then the other overpowered character, and then another overpowered character again and again and again, and that's your online experience that turns people off too. So we're in a spot now where the balance needs a lot of work. As people have pointed out, it's early, and it tends to be like this early in fighting games. I, however, feel like there's stuff in here where there's no way Namco didn't know that this was going to happen. There's no way Namco didn't know that some of these moves were too crazy. It's obvious, it's deliberate, it's marketing, it's sales, it's design intent behind the overpoweredness of some characters, and I don't like it when they do that. They will probably keep doing it with DLC characters. We've had DLC character leaks that I believe are true. I think I know what characters are going to come out for DLC in the next year, and I'm not going to spoil who they are, but if they don't do a lot of very, very important work on those characters, it's going to get a lot worse, because it's characters that have the potential to be cataclysmic in the Tekken 8 system with heat and the way it works right now. So those are just my thoughts and my comments on Tekken character popularity in 8 so far. We're going to have more data coming out. The stuff will change. You know, there will be balance patches. We'll keep up to date with the situation. I hope you are enjoying the game right now, though, and I will say I'm liking it more every day. And even though it is mentally taxing and painful to play because of the balancing, because of the aggressive nature, it is also addictive, has an extremely high level of polish outside of the balance, and it's just going to go down as a very popular and historic fighting game, I think. So it's just great to be part of it, you know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon.